Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm Keith Downey, your host. And are we going out and making disciples for God? Or are we making disciples for us? Talking all about that on The Next Right Thing with Debbie Georgianni and Adam Blai. Good morning, Debbie and Adam.
Good morning, Keith. Thank you so much. Happy Monday to you. Yes, Adam and I are glad to be here on The Next Right Thing. And so, Adam, why don't you dive right in, because we have a lot we're going to cover in this short, less than 30 minutes.
Yeah, so this topic, Deb, it's been on my mind for years. So if I can start super briefly, a long time ago I was teaching philosophy of science as part of one of the courses I was teaching during graduate school. You know, you're always kind of teaching on the side when you're a grad student. And we had this class on postmodernism. And postmodernism is the idea that there's no objective truth, that everybody has an equally valid perspective on reality and an equally true, because it's their truth, so to speak. And this was kind of a strange partial movement within science. And I remember thinking as I was explaining this, would I want to have a surgeon who's a postmodernist? Would I want, let's say I needed surgery, would I want a surgeon to be working on me, saying they have their own ideas about how the body and organs work, and they have their own approach to surgery that might be a little bit different, but it's true for them? Well, of course not. And then, as my life has moved on and I'm thinking a lot more about the spiritual side of things, these last 20 years, it's kind of the same thought comes to me when I see the totally subjective spirituality that's so attractive to us, because we can rationalize our behavior. We can say, well, I'm basically a good person in my own judgment. I think, I'm good to go. And if there's a positive afterlife, I definitely have earned it because I think so. And having no objective truth. Mm-hmm. And it kind of breaks down there also. And the reason it breaks down is, the very beginning of learning any topic is what's called ignorant incompetence, meaning I don't know what I don't know. So this is kind of like the person at the party who's a bore and talks like they know about every single topic that comes up, and they're confident in their speech because they don't know what they don't know. And most of us are at that point in life before we dive deep into spiritual truths and unpacking the Bible and the church. And I think that we're slipping back into that comfortable place of a postmodern religious perspective in our nation and in a lot of people's spirituality. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. And it's not working for us, obviously, because look, we're going off a cliff, and so here's what's interesting. We talk about making disciples, right? Making disciples for God, and that's what we're called to do by our baptism. And yet there's this a strong desire for self-pleasure, no pain, go for whatever absolutely feels good, because you can justify it, rationalize it. You can say, well, like you said, I'm a good person and I deserve this, or it's okay because my neighbor is getting so much, so I can grab it too. So we're kind of all having this group mentality of going in this direction. It's not working for us. It's obvious. It's obvious when you look at what's happening in the world and all the division and how people are choosing things that are totally opposite of what God has deemed as what is proper and what is ordered and what we should be obeying. I mean, it's so obvious. But yet, how do you convince people that we're going in the wrong direction?
Well, and there's a word you just used there that's really key, and that is finding kind of pleasure in your spiritual life. There's kind of a spiritual hedonism going on, and hedonism is just seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. That's really what it means. And that's Genesis, right? So the temptation that you can be like God. You don't need God. You don't need any external spiritual truths. You can just tell yourself that you're God. And of course that leads to ultimate pleasure because it's that delusion that, I'm in control of everything. So I have complete security and my future's taken care of, and I can have anything that I just will into reality. And this is so New Age, right?
Mm-hmm,
So it's there in Genesis, and then you hear that, and then you think, oh, that's like The Secret, and like, manifesting my truth, and, if I picture it, it'll happen. It's all the same temptation, and that is turn away from God, stare at yourself, and then delude yourself into thinking that you're in control.
What bothers me so much, you're absolutely spot on, Adam, but what bothers me so much is I was reading this article recently about these Satan clubs and these Satan conventions that are popping up all over the place, and people are attending these expos and things that they're going to, and they're walking away, and they're asking people when they come out, what was it like in there? And they say, oh, the people are so nice. I mean, nice doesn't make holy. I mean, what are we talking about here? I mean, this is just crazy talk here. I mean, are we ever going to get back to what is true by God? I mean, what are we doing? If we totally take God away from everything, I guess people could go around saying that they're nice to one another, or nice and on occasion. I mean, that's possible. I mean, that's just, I guess, human, conduct and stuff. I don't know, but a baseline understanding of human interactions. Okay, maybe. But where's God in all this? I don't understand why there's such a fear of bringing God into conversations. I mean, it's almost like people are hesitant. And maybe we're preaching to the choir here, because the people that listen to Catholic radio, they're good, solid, wonderful, amazing people that want to get to heaven, okay? But they're also people that just trip onto the station, and they're, kind of curious of what's going on here on Catholic radio. And, maybe we're kind of talking and directing it to you. I mean, when are we going to talk about God in our conversations? Why are we so afraid to bring God into things? I know somebody that was afraid the other day to wear, they made a comment about me wearing a Padre Pio hat. And they said, aren't you afraid to wear that? I go, for why? I mean, I don't understand it, Adam. I guess I'm getting really frustrated at how people are trying to figure out where to place God in things.
I think we're afraid of God largely because we're afraid of being held accountable. And then secondly, deep down we know that we're not as perfect of a person as we kind of talk ourselves into thinking that way. Deep down we know if we were held up against God's yardstick, we would fall short. And we know we're all sinners. We're all going to fall short. We need Jesus. We need his redemption for us to pay for our sins, and then we need to repent for the sins that, we're committing as we go along. It's scary to think of being held to an objective measurement. We want to just say, well, I was cranky that day. I didn't have my coffee, and, so maybe I was mean to that person, but there's reasons, and I'm not really accountable for that. We talk ourselves out of sin and the accountability for sin all the time. And God is scary because we don't want to be held to that external standard. We want to be held to the nice standard. And nice doesn't necessarily mean helpful.
It doesn't cut it, right.
It doesn't mean helpful. One quick diversion, when I was in training in psychology, I have a master's in adult clinical psychology, when I was all but dissertation. When I was in training for that, we watched training videos. And there was a difference between the super nice approach of the therapist who just reflects back everything that you say and is super accepting no matter what you say or do. They just reflect it back to you and they think you're wonderful. And then there's the therapist. There's some that are very confrontational and give you the truth of what they see in you immediately, in your subtle manipulations, in your self-delusions, all of it. And those sessions look really rough. You watch them and you're just cringing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you get agitated.
But then they interview the people coming out, and the people that had the session with the person that told them how it is, they said, that's the person that actually helped me, and that's the person I would pay to go to therapy with. And the person that's just super nice, they say, well, I feel good, but I didn't get anything out of it.
Well, they were enabling their behavior. If you're going to be super nice, all you're doing is say, yeah, that's good, Adam. That if that feels good to you, you're just promoting that same behavior. I mean, you have to have a little bit of a challenge in order to grow, right?
Yeah, and God gives us that challenge, in a few ways. He gives us the rules, and then he allows us to be tempted and tested to bounce off those rules or cross those lines and then learn the truth of them. We learn through those experiences, and that's what spiritual growth is. You learn through stumbling, falling sometimes, getting yourself up and saying, wow, I'm not going to do that again. And then, oh, wow, I did this and it worked really well in a genuine way. Maybe I'll do more of that. It takes a lifetime, but God gives us that opportunity. Yeah. And what we opened with, being a disciple to your own imagination, to your own rationalizations. Deb, it's not going to cut it. Like, part of my perspective is, working in the exorcism world, I see the true yardstick held up to people. Now, it's held up often by the enemy, who it does it in a very, very accusatory way, because he's called the accuser.
Sure.
But he holds up that yardstick and lays claim to people based on not their own ideas of their behavior, but based on the law of God.
That's right.
This person rejected God and lost their trust in Jesus, and they turned to me for help. And so now they're in relationship with me. They've done these sins, and I lay claim to them based on these sins. And until they repent of those, I'm not leaving. That type of thing happens all the time. Right. So, when you get in the deep end of the swimming pool with deliverance and exorcism, you get a very different perspective. There is an objective truth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the sooner we realize that, the better off we will be as a world. Okay, we're going to hold it there, Adam, and send it back to Keith for some important announcements, and then he'll flip it back to us.
All righty. Thank you so much, Debbie and Adam. And I was thinking about my youth while both Debbie and Adam were talking. I was afraid of praying in front of other people. Praying in front of people that I knew, of all people. I didn't have any issue with praying, before like eating in a restaurant. I had no problem with that. But it was the people that I was in front of. And I think what it was is that I was afraid of being too pompous or too pious. But that, I was basically talking myself out of it, and which was not a good thing. And the more I did it, nobody cared. Nobody cared. In fact, I'd have to think like how many missed opportunities I had talking with friends, family, other people that I knew, colleagues, if I would have just done the sign of the cross and prayed before my meal in a way that was expressing my faith. So if you're out there and you're feeling a little shy about praying in front of people, especially before you eat, just do it. You got nothing to lose, and you got so much more to gain just by doing the sign of the cross. But coming up next, we are continuing this conversation of the blind leading the blind, and are we making disciples for God or for ourselves? Talking more coming up after this break here on Morning Joy, where truth matters. Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm Keith Downey, your host, and we are continuing the final segment this morning of The Next Right Thing, talking all about making disciples for God, not for ourselves, with Debbie Georgianni and Adam Blai. Take it away, Debbie and Adam.
Thanks so much, Keith. Adam, we're already getting responses from our Morning Joy listeners. They are definitely taking in what we're saying, and they agree with what we are sharing with the world today. So if you want to go ahead and continue, because my blood pressure is already sky high.
Well, I wanted to finish the kind of 4 stages of competence, because I think now that we've gotten through the break, we can pull the nose of the plane up and look at the positive. So what can we do next? So we mentioned that a lot of us are at a stage of ignorant incompetence, meaning we don't know what we don't know, and we just imagine that everything's great, and I know spirituality, and I rationalize my behavior, and I have no external truth, and all of that. The next stage in development, and this is in any field, this isn't just spirituality, any field, is conscious incompetence. And that means I realize what I don't know. And this is a person who's starting their journey. They've learned a little bit about the faith. They kind of know the 10 Commandments. They kind of know what the sacraments are for, but they don't know it deeply. They haven't really soaked it all in and gone deep with a lot of areas. And that's fine, because they're looking for God, they want to learn more about God, and they know they haven't learned quite enough yet to become, somebody who maybe could answer questions in a full way and help people in their own journey. They're saying, like, I'm a beginner, basically, but I realize it. The next level is conscious competence, and that means now I know what I know, and I know a good amount where I'm actually competent.
Right.
But this is the person who, as they're doing whatever their field is, let's say I'm a mechanic, I'm having to like think it through and like, okay, yeah, I remember, okay, what this trick and that trick, and I need that tool. And I'm having to kind of like work mentally to do it, but I can do it well.
Mm-hmm.
And the final stage is unconscious competence, and that is the person who's like the Padre Pio of spirituality, where you hit him with any question in any moment of any day, and he will say in a few words or a sentence the most insightful thing that'll change your life, and he doesn't even have to work at it. It just flows. And so that's kind of the final stage of mastering any discipline. Instead of being lost in ignorant incompetence, the spiritual hedonism of a postmodern self and spirituality, let's be brave enough to look at the external truth, look at what it is that we need to learn and know it well to get in a state of grace, stay in a state of grace, as you always say, and then continue down that road. Hopefully grow to the point where it starts to become instinct that's valid and good, and, even under scrutiny, it's like, yeah, your instincts are right on point, and you also know a lot of the facts and the information, and you've learned that external yardstick that is truth. There really is an external yardstick. Go ahead.
Well, remember we had Father Wade Menezes on Saturdays, the spirit world, and he was phenomenal. And I would suggest that our listeners, if you missed that episode, please go to the archives and listen to it. You can pick it up on our GRN online YouTube channel. It's right there under Spirit World. But Father Wade Menezes, he emphasized that we are not eternity minded enough, eternity focused enough. And I think that I'm just going to say this because everybody knows I don't have a filter, okay? If you have half a brain, you have to figure out how to get to heaven, right? I mean, you can read the Bible, you read the Catechism, you can understand how God's laws are, you know the 10 Commandments, you know what Jesus said to do. It's all there. I mean, it doesn't take much to learn. I mean, people even that are, very, have a difficult time comprehending things can still absorb what the commandments are. And if we focus on being eternity minded, we will orient our lives in that direction. The problem is, let's face it, Adam, it's all about excuses. I feel good. The whole world is doing it. I'm going to do it. So we're all going off the cliff together. It's that simple in my mind. I mean, somebody try to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I mean, you can just look at what's going on in the world, and everybody's going along with it, thinking it's okay. Even these trashy movies that are coming out from Hollywood celebrities that say they're Catholic. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, the bar is so low, we don't even have to even walk over it. It's buried into the ground. It's so low. And Satan is not even trying to stay laying low. He's out there, celebrating.
Yeah, I do think things are becoming more kind of blatant in terms of, kind of the satanic imagery, the satanic ideas. And we're going back to Genesis and the original temptation and the fall. And the reason that story is there is because it's the first thing that we wrestle with as human beings. The Bible is a guidebook for life, and it says, look, here's the first challenge you are going to experience. Learn it, through this story that you're not God. And, we don't create ourselves. We don't create other people. We don't create the world. We can't just will things into existence. And so getting over that delusion, which is, that's the childhood delusion. Mm-hmm. When we're very, very little kids, we kind of imagine that everything is here for us, and we're the center of everything. Everything rotates around us when we're very tiny.
But then we got to grow up.
we do have to grow up, but I think our society because we don't want to offend anybody and give them any objective truth, we allow them to stay spiritual infants.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But come on, Adam, don't you agree that people know what's right and wrong? I mean, you can't. To me, it's ridiculous. I mean, people, even you can tell when people are doing something that's not right by God. You can even see it on their face. They struggle with it, but then somehow they justify it and go through with it.
You know, one thing I picked up in working in the prisons I worked in psychological services for a number of years. When you look at people that did crimes, it's like 80-90% of the people in there were drunk when they did their crimes. Mm. What does that tell you? That tells you that there was an impulse to do something, but they knew it was wrong. Mm-hmm. They resisted the impulse. They took, this substance that basically lowers inhibitions in order to be able to do what they wanted to do because their conscience was bothering them.
Right.
And in a lot of cases.
Right.
I'm
and
not
they
saying
numbed
every
their
case.
conscience. Yeah.
Yeah, so the internal compass does point to good and away from evil, and we know that. And I think that's, in a lot of cases at least, the reason people pick up all these distractions, keeping themselves continuously distracted or drinking really frequently. It's to avoid the internal conflict and that internal feeling of, I'm not living right. This isn't right. There's something really wrong, so I'm going to numb myself to it because I don't know how to do it any differently, so I'm just going to numb myself.
Exactly. But what does the Bible say? Stay sober, stay alert. I mean, we're told what to do in the Bible. If we're gonna reject the living Word of God, then I don't know what to tell people. I mean, good luck, I guess. I don't know what to tell people. I mean, you can't just fall on God's mercy and say, "Oh my goodness, I read it, but I rejected it. I don't know why I rejected it. The alcohol did it to me." Is that going to be a good enough excuse?
No, once your conscience is informed, meaning you've been given the truth or told the truth and you've heard it, mm-hmm. you are then held to that standard. And we see that in the exorcism world. I don't mean to always go back to that, but once a person's conscience is informed and they understand it's all real, when they continue to go back to the well and draw from that water and do those bad things,
right,
the consequences are much greater. So it's important.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this was really good. I'm glad we covered it today, but we have to make room for Monsignor Charles Pope for Mondays with Monsignor. So we're going to send it back to Keith for the rest of Morning Joy.
Appreciate you both, Debbie Georgianni and Adam Blai, for helping us do the next right thing. And Debbie mentioned it this last Saturday on All Souls Day. Father Wade Menezes from the Fathers of Mercy joined up and took calls related to heaven, hell, and purgatory. You're not going to want to miss that one if you maybe did. There's a couple ways you can go about viewing it. Obviously, Debbie mentioned going to YouTube, searching GRN online. Or you could just go to Facebook, facebook.com/The Spirit World Podcast. That's facebook.com/The Spirit World Podcast. Another great community. And we're really trying to get everybody to join on the Facebook side of things because it's a great platform to join for a great community, whether you're looking at the Spirit World or Morning Joy, which you can also join going to facebook.com/Morning Joy Show. Coming up next, though, why we as Catholics should not bury the vote tomorrow. We're talking with Monsignor Charles Pope coming up after this break here on Morning Joy, where truth matters.
You're listening to Morning Joy, where truth matters.